Hi everyone, hope you're enjoying having a bit of a lie-in, staying in pajamas for longer, going for the occasional muddy walk because there's not much else to do. I hope you're sitting down for this. I've got one more piece of bad news for this week, as if it hasn't been bad enough. In Parshas Vayechi, Yaakov dies. That is my news for the week. So let's talk about that a bit. So Yaakov's now at the end of his life and he is just about to die. He knows he's about to die. And he calls in Yosef and Yosef's two children, Manasseh and Ephraim, because he wants to give them a bracha before he dies. Now, I just want to backtrack a little bit. And I'm very much not bashing anyone who sits in yeshiva and learns for a very long time, because I think that is a very nice thing to do. But I'd like to draw your attention to something that I find intriguing about the Avos. Avram and Yitzchak, you never see them sitting and learning with the Gemara. Yaakov does do a big stint in yeshiva. He's there for 14 years. But from the time that he is a father and a husband, again, he's not sitting and learning. He's actually just being a shepherd. But what I find interesting about them, so again, I'm not suggesting anyone shouldn't sit and learn because I think that's very impressive if that's what you want to do with your life. And we're all very much dependent on the people that are sitting and learning. But for those of us who are not sitting and learning full time, it's not the only way to be frum. So like Yaakov, later in his life, I find it amazing that actually the thing that I notice about him most is that he's not sitting and learning, but he's always talking about Hashem. He actually had a really difficult life. But throughout all of it, there's almost this constant conversation going on about Hashem and what Hashem's doing, and he has conversations with him and he struggles with the malach. And you see this gets passed down to Yosef as well. And when Yosef he also has a very difficult life, he also constantly talks about Hashem. When he gets down to Mitzrayim and he's confronted with Mrs. Potiphar and she makes a move on him, he says, I can't do anything because of Hashem. And then when he's in prison with the butler and the baker, he interprets their dreams and he says, it's not me, it's Hashem. And then when he's introduced to Paro and he's asked to interpret his dream, again, he says, this is not something that I can do, this is all Hashem. And he's this random guy in the middle of Egypt and all he's doing is talking about Hashem. And it's this constant that I think led him to bring up his children, Manasseh and Ephraim, in a particular way, which I'm going to talk about soon. So now Yaakov, he's at the end of his life and he's giving these brachas to his grandsons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And the second half of the bracha we're very familiar with. It's Hamalach HaGoel Osi Mekara, which a lot of people say at night time with their children before they go to sleep, or it's actually as part of Kriyas Shema Al Hameta, which is a whole longer blessing that some people say before they go to sleep at night. And it's quite well known. It's a nice tune. It's kind of the Jewish version of Twinkle Twinkle. And a lot of little children know it. And it's a very soothing, familiar, nice tune. And it's a nice part of the going to bed ritual. Now, the pasuk before this Hamalach HaGoel is much lesser known. And actually, I think it's really interesting. So I'll just translate. The pasuk before says, this is Yaakov talking to his grandsons, the God in whose ways my fathers Avram and Yitzchak walked, the God who has been my shepherd from birth until today. And then he's talking about God, but then he switches to a malach, an angel, and the commentaries say it could be that he's talking about other intermediaries in his life or an actual angel or any kind of feeling of divine presence, anything like that. And he says, Hamalach HaGoel Osi Mikora, this malach, this angel who guards me and protected me and saved me from every bad thing that ever happened to me, he should bless these children, Manasseh and Ephraim. And I think it's amazing how, he's had this really hard life, but he talks about it at the end and he looks back over his life and he says, at all these bad times, there was an angel with me. I never felt alone. I felt like I had Hashem with me through every terrible thing that ever happened to me, through Esau, my brother, wanting to kill me, through being swindled by Lavan, through losing my wife Rachel, through all the infertility, through losing my son Yosef, and only rediscovering him fairly recently. He lost him for 22 years. He had a lot of really difficult things in his life, and he says throughout every bad thing that ever happened to him, he had this malach watching over him and saved him from every bad thing that ever happened to him. And he wants this malach to also look after these grandsons of his, Menashe and Ephraim, and that's his bracha to them, that they should always feel this divine presence in every bad situation or every good situation, every situation that they ever come across. And he carries on to say that all of our children, the Jewish people's children, should be blessed, that they should be like Menashe and Ephraim and Menashe, actually, he says. And this is a bracha that, again, it's a custom. A lot of people give their children a bracha on Friday night. Yisemech Elokim ke'Ephraim v'chemenashe. So it really has carried on all this time that we really do bless our children, that they should be like Ephraim and Menashe. And it's interesting that we talk about Menashe and Ephraim, that we should bless our children to be like them rather than any of the other Shavatim. And the other interesting thing is that if you connect up these two Pesukim, the Hamalach one that we all know, but also the one beforehand where he says, the God in whose ways my fathers Avram and Yitzhak and Yaakov walked, and the God who's been my shepherd, he connects it to this blessing of Hamalach that he's giving them. He's seemingly saying, you're going to have this malach with you, but only if you continue in this path that your fathers walked. And he wants them to connect with their ancestors. So why do we bless that they should be like that all our children should be like Ephraim and Menashe? And how do we do this? How do we ensure that our children do carry on this path so that they're deserving of this bracha? Now, Menashe and Ephraim, they were the only ones of the Shavatim who actually didn't grow up knowing Yitzchak, because they were born in Egypt. Yitzchak was still in Canaan. The other Shavatim all knew Yitzchak, and they all spent a lot of time with Yaakov. And these two, the grandsons of Yaakov, Ephraim and Menashe, they only met up with Yaakov for the last 17 years of his life. So they missed out on Yitzchak, and they only knew Yaakov towards the end. They are the ones that we're blessed to be like. So why is that? Because they grew up in Golus. They're the most similar to us. We don't have that strong connection anymore to all these amazing ancestors. We're way down the line. And Yosef showed us how to maintain our children's relationship with their ancestors who they never met, which is what we are hoping to do for our children. And how does he do it? He talks about Hashem. He's part of their everyday life. He's not sitting in yeshiva. He's not even in Eretz Yisrael. He's living in Golus, in Egypt, and he's working. He's got a job. He's got a very important job. He's like the second in command in the whole of Egypt. But still, he's made Hashem a part of their everyday life. He's made him a part of their conversation. Because your kids know what's important to you. If there's this guy Hashem or God who you've never mentioned to them, you've never spoken about, he's not on your mind at all, they know that he's not really that important to you, that he's not a really big feature in your life or in their life. He's got to come up sometimes in conversation. So my challenge to you this week is to just have a conversation with your children, to bring it up, whether it's about Hashem or about Torah or about Jewish history or philosophy or your outlook on life or what it does for you or how you feel about it or any kind of divine providence story that you found inspirational. Anything can be a starting point. And finally, at the end of this Sedra, Yaakov blesses all 12 of the Shavatim with a different bracha. And the Pasuk says, Ish asher kaver koso beirach osam, that each of the sons, each of the Shavatim got their own individual bracha. Beirach osam, he blessed them in the plural. So what Yaakov did was he found each individual strength of each of his children, and he blessed them that they should achieve great things with their own individual strength. Not comparing them to any of their siblings, not saying, you know what, actually your brother's much better at this than you, maybe you could be a bit more like him. He says to each of them, you, be good at what you do, but he blesses them in the plural, because what's the point of a plural blessing? You being personally good at what you're doing shouldn't only be of benefit to you, it should be of benefit in the plural, to everyone. So you don't need to worry about anything that you're lacking in or that you're not good at, because you're part of a team. You've got 11 siblings and one of them is good at every other thing. You only need to be good at what you're good at, and you need to look after your other siblings in that area. And likewise, your other siblings will look after you in that area. And this was the beginning of the Jewish people. And I think that message is even more relevant to us nowadays than even then. Because at the moment, each of us have our own strengths, and you should know that there are people who are relying on your own strength. There are certain things that only you can do, and you can't just do it for them. You can't just do it for yourself. You have to do it for everyone. And likewise, don't worry about anything that's out of your control, that you can't manage, that you're struggling with, because you've got people. Other people can have your back. They're going to be good at other things, and people can help you through with whatever you're struggling in. We're not in this alone. We're all in this together. So please God, this week we should all have the strength and the resilience to get through together, to reach out to each other and to help out. And please God, things should improve, and I wish you all a good Shabbos.